If you had told me on a random Tuesday morning that my life was about to implode over chicken parm and a half-empty bottle of Chianti, I'd have laughed and offered you seconds. But here I was, seated across from my wife and a man wearing smugness like a second skin. "Logan, meet Chase," Ashley said with a sugar-slick smile that didn't reach her eyes. "He's from work." Oh, I knew who Chase was. She'd mentioned him often enough. Her mentor, her creative muse, her work husband. I just hadn't expected to meet him at our favorite Italian place, one we'd stopped going to because she said it reminded her too much of the past. Turns out, she'd just been reserving it for the future. With him, Chase offered a handshake like we were at a company mixer. "Pleasure, man. Ashley's told me so much about you." "Not everything, clearly," I replied, shaking his hand anyway, a little firmer than necessary. Ashley's eyes darted between us like she'd lost control of the script. "We want to talk to you," she began, brushing a lock of hair behind her ear like a nervous tick she hadn't used in years. "About the next chapter." I stared at her. "Is this a book reading or a confession?" Chase chuckled. "Big mistake. You've got two options, Logan," he said, leaning in like he was Clint Eastwood on Casual Friday. "Leave quietly, or face me like a man." I blinked, looked at Ashley. She didn't flinch. Didn't even correct him. So I stood, smiled, and said, "You want your teeth whole or in pieces? But don't worry. No violence. Not yet." Instead, I picked up my coat and walked out, leaving behind the meal, the woman, and the joke of a man she'd chosen. Because I knew one thing. This wasn't the beginning of the end. It was the end of the illusion. And it was only the beginning of my next chapter. I didn't go home that night. I didn't even drive around aimlessly like they do in movies when everything crashes down. Instead, I parked at the edge of an overlook, the kind couples usually use to make out or propose, and just sat, staring into the dark, letting the silence breathe louder than anything I could scream. I didn't cry. Not out of toughness. Just confusion. That numb, hollow confusion when your entire reality shifts 2 feet to the left and suddenly none of your furniture fits anymore. By the time I walked through our front door the next morning, sunlight was streaming in like nothing happened. Like the air wasn't soaked in betrayal. Ashley wasn't home. Her excuse, if she even remembered to make one, was probably work. I didn't care. I walked straight to our bedroom closet. You want to know what a marriage looks like after it's cracked open? Check the closet. Every lie is folded neatly between vacation sweaters and perfume boxes. Every excuse is tucked in behind that dress she said was for you, but never once wore around you. I started on her side. I wasn't searching for anything specific, just something off. And then I found it. A hotel key card, tucked in a coat pocket. Room 408. Not our anniversary hotel. Not a name I recognized. Then came the photos, hidden in a zip-up pouch in her gym bag. Her and Chase at a cabin. Not some accidental work conference kind of thing. No, this was a wine glass in hand, sweater-wrapped, honeymoon-style weekend. Judging by the fall leaves, it had been months ago. I sat on the bed, everything spinning around me like a broken carousel. My hands were steady, though. Too steady. I'd heard once that when men truly snap, they don't rage. They just decide. And in that moment, I decided I was done waiting for Ashley to give me the truth. I'd take it myself. One piece at a time. Now, I'm not the type to go blabbing personal matters to every guy on my contacts list. But betrayal has a funny way of forcing your hand. And sometimes, you don't need a crowd, you just need a mirror with opinions. So I called Daniel. Daniel's been my best friend since college. The guy who once drove 6 hours in a snowstorm to bring me jumper cables and a six-pack. Loyal to a fault. Or so I thought. "You free?" I asked. "Always." "You good?" "No. I need you to come over." 10 minutes later, he was on my couch, sipping the worst coffee I've ever brewed while I laid it all out. Chase, the hotel card, the photos, the smug dinner ambush. Daniel listened. No interruptions. No gasps. Just an occasional nod like a therapist on salary. When I finished, I waited. His face was unreadable. "Tell me what you're thinking," I said. He exhaled through his nose, slowly. "I'm thinking. I should have told you months ago." My neck stiffened. "What?" Daniel didn't look up. "I saw them. Ashley and Chase. At the farmer's market in June. Holding hands. She saw me. I think she knew I saw. But I didn't say anything because, honestly, I hoped I was wrong. And I didn't want to be the guy who dropped the grenade." I stood. Silent. Processing. Daniel stood too, palms up. "Logan, man. I'm sorry. I didn't know it was that serious. I thought maybe they were just flirting." Just flirting, I echoed. With her coworker. While we were married. You didn't think that was worth mentioning? He sighed. It's easy now to say I should have. But I didn't want to be the reason your marriage fell apart. I looked him dead in the eyes. You weren't. She was. But you stood by and let the house burn down while you watched from across the street. He didn't argue. That was the last time Daniel and I spoke. You see, when your life gets doused in gasoline and lit up, you quickly learn who brought the matches and who brought marshmallows. Revenge, when it's still hot, is messy, impulsive, flashy. You throw punches in a restaurant or shout threats in front of a judge and think you're doing something. But the real damage, the kind that lasts, is done with quiet hands and a clear head. And I was becoming very clear. After Daniel's little confession, I stopped trusting memories. Every holiday, every date night, every lazy Sunday cuddled on the couch became suspect. I started replaying conversations in my mind like forensic evidence. Did she glance at her phone too often? Laugh a little too easily when Chase's name came up? One by one, the illusions folded. And in their place, I began building a plan. Now, I wasn't about to turn into some cartoon villain with a monologue and a twirl of the mustache. But I wasn't going to be anyone's punchline either. First step, I made copies of everything. Photos, emails, text logs. Yes, I had access. Ashley never changed her habits. She still used my laptop for work when hers ran low on battery. Still left her passwords auto-filled like we lived in a Disney movie. One quick peek into her cloud storage? Jackpot. She kept everything. Not just photos of her and Chase, but videos, journal entries, confessionals she'd recorded, either for some podcast she never started or for her own twisted little documentary. One of them was dated the night before our last anniversary. I keep wondering if Logan suspects. He's been distant. Or maybe just tired. I can't tell. But Chase makes me feel like I matter again. Matter. Funny word to use after 22 months of therapy appointments she never showed up for. Anyway, I took all of it. Loaded onto a drive I encrypted like Fort Knox, then made 2 more backups and hid them in separate places. That wasn't paranoia. That was insurance. Next, I called my lawyer. Not a divorce lawyer, my lawyer. The kind of guy who helped me set up my business and knew how to spot a landmine before it exploded. Logan, good to hear from you. What's up? I need to restructure my assets. Quietly. He paused. Personal or professional? Both. He didn't ask more. Within 2 days, my name was no longer tied to the company account. My shares were transferred into a trust. Ashley wouldn't even see it coming. I had made the mistake of letting her co-sign things once. That was never happening again. While that was in motion, I started the real work. Stagecraft. If Ashley wanted a spectacle, I'd give her one, but not the kind she could control. I started being overly affectionate at home. Made her breakfast. Left her little notes. Planned a surprise weekend getaway. She looked suspicious, but also smug. Like maybe she thought Chase had finally scared me into submission. Things feel better, she said one morning, pouring herself coffee like she hadn't been sleeping with another man for half a year. Yeah, I said with a grin. Sometimes you just need to reset. She kissed me on the cheek. I almost laughed. The weekend getaway wasn't a getaway. It was a baited trap. I made a dinner reservation at the place where we got engaged, hired a photographer, and invited a few friends for a surprise. I told Ashley I wanted to renew our vows. Oh, Logan, she breathed, caught completely off guard. That's beautiful. She said yes, of course. Why wouldn't she? I was playing the perfect fool. What she didn't know was that Chase was invited too. I'd hacked her calendar and sent him an invite from her email. The message read, Logan's planning a surprise dinner. Come by the restaurant around 7:30. I'll find a way to slip away. And wouldn't you know it, he showed up. Just as dessert was being served and my friends were clinking champagne glasses, in walks Chase, scanning the room like the uninvited varsity quarterback crashing prom. Ashley's face turned white. Then red. Then something in between. Oh, she stammered, eyes flicking to me. I didn't expect. Chase, I said, rising from my seat with a grin. So glad you could make it. He blinked. Yeah, I didn't know it was a whole thing. I walked over and clapped him on the shoulder like we were old pals. Ashley was just telling everyone how you two got so close at work. Around the table, forks slowed. Conversation stalled. Ashley's hand trembled as she reached for her wine. Logan, I didn't invite. I raised a hand. It's fine. We're all friends here. In fact, I think it's time for a toast. I stood, glass in hand, and looked around the table. To old friends, to new beginnings, and to the truth. I turned toward Chase and smiled. Especially the kind that slips out when you least expect it. And just like that, I pressed play on a video. It mirrored onto the flat screen in the private dining room. Ashley's voice filled the room. I keep wondering if Logan suspects. The room went silent. Ashley lunged across the table. Turn that off. Too late. The truth had been served. Room temperature. No need to reheat. And me? I just sipped my champagne and watched the curtain fall. The aftermath of the dinner was quieter than I expected, not because it lacked drama, but because Ashley didn't scream. She didn't beg or cry. She didn't storm out or throw her wine across the room like a soap opera villain. No, she just stood there, frozen, like a glass statue trying to remember how to shatter. My friends? A mixed bag of reactions. Some stared at their plates, others glanced between me and Ashley like we just hijacked their romantic evening. The photographer, bless him, kept snapping pictures like he thought it was all part of the plan. In a way, it was. Chase, however, turned red. Then purple. Then just sweaty. Dude, what is this? He muttered, already backing toward the door. Just footage, I said, of a long-running performance. Thought you might appreciate being part of the closing act. He didn't say goodbye. He left so fast he forgot his jacket. That's how you know a man's not built for consequences. He leaves without the thing that keeps him warm. Ashley sat back down, slowly. Her hands clasped in her lap like she was at a funeral. Logan, she whispered. I raised a brow. You have the floor. Her eyes flicked to the screen, still frozen on her face mid-confession. Then back to me. I can explain. Of course you can, I said. But I'm not here for explanations. I'm here to make sure we're both clear about what happens next. She didn't ask what that meant. She already knew. Because unlike most people, cheaters do plan for the fallout. They just assume it'll be easier to manage. I never wanted to hurt you, she said softly. And yet, I said, here we are. I gave her the courtesy of finishing the meal. Not because I wanted to share another bite with her, but because it made my exit cleaner. I stood, tossed a generous tip on the table for the staff, and said, my lawyer will be in touch. Ashley reached for my hand. I stepped back. You made your choices, I said. Now I'm making mine. That night, I checked into a hotel I had reserved weeks prior. It wasn't fancy, just quiet. Neutral. The kind of place where the pillows don't know your name and the mirror doesn't ask questions. I slept like a man with an emptied backpack. Lighter, freer. Still furious? Sure. But at least the lies weren't whispering in the sheets anymore. Over the next few days, things moved quickly. The legal documents were delivered to Ashley's office, courtesy of a process server who looked like he enjoyed his job just a little too much. Contested divorce? Nope. I had her cornered too tightly for that. Adultery with photographic and video proof. Bank statements showing joint funds spent on work retreats and personal growth spas she never mentioned. Everything was airtight. We had no kids. No shared business. Just a house and a memory that used to look like a marriage. She sent a text. A single line. Can we talk? I didn't reply. Instead, I packed up the things that mattered. My guitar, my grandfather's watch, the Polaroid from my first fishing trip with Dad, and left the rest. The house, the furniture, the art we bought on our honeymoon, all hers now. Let her sit in it. Let her feel how loud the silence can be when no one's buying the illusion anymore. A week later, I ran into Paul and Linda, our friends, who had laughed while my wife danced her loyalty away on a club floor. They were at a coffee shop, all smiles and yoga gear, looking like betrayal hadn't tasted nearly bitter enough yet. Linda raised a hand. Logan. Oh my gosh, how are you? I looked at her, then at Paul, then back at my drink. I'm fine, I said. How's the entertainment industry treating you too? Paul's smile faltered. We weren't trying to. You were, I interrupted. You were watching my marriage fall apart like it was a TikTok challenge. But hey, good news. You don't have to pretend to be my friends anymore. Linda's eyes welled up. It wasn't like that. It never is. Until it is. I walked out without finishing my coffee. Petty? Maybe. But dignity's a funny thing. It grows stronger the less you compromise it. 3 weeks post-dinner, Ashley emailed me. You hurt me, too. I know you think I'm the villain, but you weren't always perfect either. Ah, the classic turn. The desperate shuffle to level the playing field. I didn't reply. There's no point responding to someone who confuses consequences with cruelty. I forwarded it to my lawyer instead. We added it to the file. Every piece of communication went into a folder, proof that I had remained calm, respectful, restrained. Judges love restraint. And me? I started writing again. Journaling, mostly. Sketching out the bones of a book I might finish one day. About betrayal. About rebuilding. About how sometimes losing your wife is the best thing she ever did for you. I began waking up early, hitting the gym. Not because I needed revenge muscle. Just because I liked seeing who I could become without someone constantly weighing me down. People ask if I miss her. And honestly, I miss the version of her I thought existed. The ghost I used to wake up next to. The woman who smiled at me from wedding photos, not knowing yet how easily she'd erase that smile for someone else. But Ashley, the real one? No, I don't miss her. I don't even remember what she smells like anymore. It happened on a Thursday because of course it did. Betrayal never arrives on a dramatic Friday or a symbolic Monday. It sneaks in midweek, when your guard's down, when you're folding laundry and thinking life might just be normal again. I just poured my second cup of black coffee when the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone, and I hadn't told many people where I moved. I opened the door, and there she was. Tessa, Ashley's younger sister. If that surprises you, don't worry, it surprised me too. We hadn't spoken in months. Last I heard, she was living 3 states away and working on her PhD in clinical psychology, of all things. The irony. Tessa, I said flatly, one hand still on the doorknob. Should I be worried you're here or just confused? She gave me a weak smile, holding a paper bag that smelled like muffins. Can I come in? I didn't answer. Just stepped aside. She walked in like she remembered the layout, which she probably did. She and Ashley had grown up in that area. Spent countless weekends in our guest room when we were first married. Back then, she was the kid sister I teased about bad boyfriends and overdue term papers. Now she was a woman with tired eyes and shoes that looked too sensible for someone under 30. I heard about the dinner, she said, settling into one of the kitchen stools like this was just another family breakfast. Word travels fast. She nodded. Ashley's not exactly subtle when she spirals. I said nothing. Let the silence grow thick. Tessa reached into the bag and pulled out a muffin, placed it on a napkin, then slid it across the counter like a peace offering. She's a wreck, Logan. I raised an eyebrow. And you thought carbs would soften me? She smiled, despite herself. No. I brought the muffin for me. I figured you'd still prefer your bitterness straight up. She took a bite. I leaned against the counter, arms crossed. I'm not here to defend her, she said after a moment. What she did was disgusting. And cruel. I told her that to her face. Good for you, I said, dry as sandpaper. She doesn't sleep, she continued. Hasn't really eaten. She keeps talking about what she lost. Like she didn't set fire to it herself. I looked at her sharply. Tessa, I appreciate the update, but if you came to make me feel sorry for the arsonist, you're wasting your time. I didn't, she said. I came to tell you something else. Now that got my attention. I didn't move, but something in me leaned forward. She hesitated. You remember last year's charity gala? The one in August. I nodded. Ashley had been sick that week. Claimed she had food poisoning and couldn't make it. I'd gone solo, donated a chunk of change, and ended up networking with half the city council. Tessa swallowed. She wasn't sick. She was in Boston. I felt the floor shift under me just slightly. She told me, Tessa continued, months later. She'd gone there with Chase. Said she needed to clear her head. Said you'd never know. And you didn't think to tell me then? Her eyes dropped. I wanted to. I almost did. But I was scared. Of what? Of what it would do to you. To her. To my family. I figured maybe she'd come to her senses. That she'd confess. I didn't think it would last. I stared at her. Really looked. She wasn't lying. But that didn't mean she was clean either. Tessa, you knew she was cheating on me. You knew. And you let me keep walking around like a man with spinach in his teeth. I know, she said, voice cracking. And I'm sorry. Silence. Then, why now? Because she's not just spiraling. She's desperate. And I know my sister. When she's desperate, she does stupid things. Like cheat on her husband? Like try to win him back. I blinked. Excuse me. She's got some idea in her head that if she makes a big gesture, some public apology, or therapy, or God knows what, you'll give her another shot. I laughed. Loud. Short. Sharp. Tessa didn't. She doesn't get it, she said. You're not angry anymore. That would mean you still care. You're done. And she can't stand that. Sounds like her problem? Tessa nodded. It is. But I figured you should know before she does something idiotic. Like show up at your job. or your gym, or wherever else she thinks your heart might still be. I didn't say anything. Didn't have to. Because I wasn't afraid of Ashley showing up anymore. In fact, I was hoping she would. There's a certain power in knowing you've already buried someone in the part of your heart that doesn't forgive. It makes their last-ditch efforts feel like wind against a brick wall. Tessa finished her muffin, wiped her hands, stood. I'm sorry again, Logan. Don't be sorry, I said, walking her to the door. Just don't stay quiet next time someone starts a fire. She looked at me one last time. You were good to her. Better than she ever deserved. I watched her walk down the steps, get into her car, drive away. And I stood there in the doorway, feeling the early evening air brush against my face, knowing the next storm wasn't far off. Let it come. This time, I'd be ready. Ashley didn't knock. She walked in like she still owned the place, forgetting I had changed the locks 2 weeks ago. What she didn't know was that the building manager was an old friend of mine and owed me a favor. So when she marched up to my new apartment the following Sunday, all dolled up like she was auditioning for a perfume commercial, she got nothing but the sound of her own knuckles meeting steel. I opened the door only far enough to see her face. She smiled. Big mistake. Logan, she said, voice smooth. Can we talk? No. Her smile faltered. I think we should. I think. I interrupted. We shouldn't. Please, she said. I've been going to therapy. I've been writing things down. I'm trying. I opened the door wider, just enough for her to see I wasn't alone. Rachel stepped out from the kitchen, holding 2 cups of coffee. Rachel, my ex's friend. Former friend, I should say. The one who always gave me that look across dinner tables like she knew Ashley didn't deserve me. Rachel raised her cup toward Ashley, not a word spoken. Ashley blinked. Well. I nodded. Yep. Well. And then I shut the door. You'd think that would be the end of it, right? Closure. New beginnings. Rachel and I testing the waters of something real. But no. Ashley couldn't stand being irrelevant. So she tried to ruin me. She started showing up at my work, crying in the parking lot like she was in a soap opera. Told HR I was unstable. Claimed I'd harassed her, even though she hadn't worked for my company a single day in her life. Fortunately, I had a plan for that too. I kept a journal. I documented everything. Times, dates, witness names. My boss even installed cameras after I explained what was going on. We had footage, clear as day, of Ashley screaming into the void like a banshee in Gucci heels. She tried to save face by posting vague, dramatic nonsense on social media. Some people turn out to be monsters, followed by a sad emoji and a filtered photo of her holding a wine glass like it was a trophy. But the real unmasking came when Rachel dropped the final card. She posted a thread. A long one. She laid it all out. The cheating, the gaslighting, the way Ashley tried to isolate me from my friends, how she laughed behind my back and called me too predictable to cheat on her back. And people saw it. They commented. They shared. They remembered the dinner video, the public meltdown. Ashley lost more than just me that year. She lost the image she'd curated like a museum exhibit. Let's talk about Chase for a second. You remember Chase? The protein shake philosophy major who thought "face me like a man" was a romantic line? Well, after my little dinner surprise, turns out Chase's company wasn't thrilled with being indirectly tied to a PR disaster. Apparently, integrity still mattered to clients. So Chase got demoted. From senior marketing lead to team collaborator. Then to consultant. Then, well, eventually to unemployed. I didn't have to lift a finger. His ego did all the heavy lifting for me. As for Ashley, the fallout kept coming. She tried dating again, but her reputation had changed zip codes. Every new guy Googled her. Every serious conversation turned into a cautious exit. Meanwhile, I rebuilt. New apartment. New hobbies. New peace. Rachel and I didn't force anything. We just existed. Comfortable. Respectful. Laughing at all the right parts. Sometimes we talked about Ashley. Sometimes we didn't. But there was one thing left. One last move. I wrote her a letter. Not an email. Not a message. A real, ink-on-paper letter. Not because I wanted to reconcile, but because I wanted to end it. Ashley, you always told me I was too calm. That I never got angry enough. That I bottled everything up. Well, I did. And then I poured it all out. Not in fists. Not in threats. But in truth. You broke something that used to matter. Not just us. Me. But here's what you never saw coming. I'm better now. Not in spite of you. Because of you. Because of the silence you left me in. Because of the way you taught me to stop loving people who don't love themselves. You taught me the cost of trusting the wrong heart, and I paid it in full. This is the last time your name will live in my thoughts without rent. We're done. Logan. P.S. You left your heels in the closet. I donated them to charity. I figured they might finally do someone some good.